Hello everyone, and welcome back to the power rankings that are now back on spreadsheets, at least for now, because Google Slides, it's not even Google Slides, it's PowerPoint. PowerPoint was being a little bitch, and it's 3 a.m. and I didn't feel like working out with it, so we're going back to the old format here. At least for today. Also, I don't really feel like putting things into slides because I just like kind of talking on my own. I don't really want to put things into words beforehand. But if you guys would really rather slides, tell me. But otherwise, I'd probably just rather do this, even though it's kind of lazy. But yeah, welcome back to the power rankings. Now, onto performance-based rather than just purely draft-based. So, considering, for the most part, play and prep, but also strength of schedule, and to some extent teams, but that's much less important here. So yeah, let's get right into it. At number 11, I have Pokemon Adam, or Pokemon Master Adam, I think that's what it was, who got pretty manhandled by DeWinchill. He is forced to use his team that doesn't have any form of rock whatsoever. Week 1, which he did fix, which will help him at least a little bit, but yeah, not being able to put up rocks against DeWinchill really made any hopes of Adam winning completely gone. But Adam came into this match pretty much without a win condition, really. He had nothing that could break down what DeWinchill had brought. Offensively, there was just nothing offensively that PK could do that could stop DeWinchill. Sableye, Milotic walled the entire team besides Tangrowth, so DeWinchill could just leave Milotic in the entire game until Tangrowth came out. And then even when Tangrowth came out, he could just go into pretty much anything because Tangrowth isn't that strong. So there really wasn't anything on PK's team that did anything that dealt with the Milotic or really just broke down DeWinchill's core at all. So PK really had to win this game defensively, and he just did not have the tools to do that. He couldn't wall out the Raikou. He couldn't really wall out the Swallow either. I think DeWinchill could have played this game better to make it more concise and really just slam PK into the ground by playing aggressively and bringing his offensive threats and really just sticking it to PK. He played the longer game and it works fine, but yeah, PK just really did not give himself an opening. He also had some questionable prep, although I appreciate most of the mons he brought. I think he brought, for the most part, the right mons. Offensive cell, he just had no place here. It was never going to sweep DeWinchill, especially when Scarf Victini was a somewhat likely bring. He should have brought an Arcanine to deal with the Victini, I think, but he had an Altaria, which is okay, I guess. He didn't bring the Jellicent either, so he made himself a bit weaker to Victini than he could have been. But offensive Silly didn't really have a place here, while defensive Silly could have really put in some work. It could have 1v1 Milotic, or at least to a much better extent than anything else did. Seeded up and really at least given DeWinchill a headache and made it much harder for him to play against. But with the Autotomize, it just really didn't do anything. Also, the play of going into Tangrowth, like turn 2 after you Autotomized on Sableye, was pretty weird as well. I'm going to assume he was afraid of regular prankster Will-O-Wisp, and if that was the case, then I still think that's fine to kill it, because you killed the Sableye right then and there, even if you do get Will-O-Wisped. And yeah, you kill it right there, and you had Heal Bell on your Ardino, so it wasn't even that big a deal if you got burnt. But if you went into the Tangrowth, I guess you'd rather the Tangrowth get burnt. I'm not exactly sure what was going on there. But then, he Earthquaked and actually let the Sableye heal up, which evidently was the end of him. because the Sableye was able to wall him, but it was really just the Milotic that did everything when he could have Giga Drained to kill it. Like, I understand that he was trying to keep the Victini and the Raikou out, but when you're a burnt Tangrowth with no attack investment, you're really not keeping those out by clicking that. Other weird things was bringing physical Altaria when it was likely your only way to deal with Sableye, and Sableye always runs Will-O-Wisp, so Special definitely had a much better place here. Yeah, beyond that, I think PK just really needs to understand what his opponent is going to do to counter what he does, to try and formulate a game plan to actually take down his opponent's team, because there was nothing PK could do once he had prepped his team to defeat D-Winchell's team. There was just nothing he could do to beat that Milotic plus Sableye, where he just had brought nothing that could break it down. Also, the Zygarde was played extremely poorly. It just outraged straight into a Milotic. It did like 50 and died. Not even, probably. So that also wasn't very great. So more creative prep is needed. So hopefully he takes this as a learning experience and really tries to improve upon it. And really try and think ahead into the game and think of what he needs to do to win it. I talked a lot about that one. Moving up to 10, Kudo. I don't think I have as much to say about this one. He really just typical Kudo things were with like weird prep and strange bringings. He brought about 0 checks to Excadrill, and to be fair to Kudo, in his draft he had about 0 checks to Excadrill. I think like his best thing he could have brought was Prankster Wisp, Foul Play Sableye, which deals with, or at least like keeps you from getting swept by Excadrill, which it definitely should have come because it does do that. But yeah, with the team he brought, Excadrill just cleaned from the absolute very beginning. So that wasn't good. And yeah, Kudo, similar problems to Pokemon Adam, or Pokemon Master Adam, or I should just keep calling him PK. The fact, I usually call him PK too, because that's just his straight up name in Discord now, since he changed it, but I like use the old doc, like this is the same iteration as before. So I just like moved his name while I had it as this, so I should probably change it to PK. Actually, I'll do it right now. PK. So I won't make that mistake again. I'll just call him PK from now on. Similar mistakes to PK, where he really obvious answers to things he just wasn't expecting, and it really broke down his game plan, like Hippo coming in on Crook to stop it and setting up rocks and taking advantage of Crook. Although he did crunch to really hacks through PETA's Hippo. It still was obvious, but like not accounted for. Muckalola just coming into pursuit the Alakazam. It should have been running Hinpire Ground, or at least something that touches the Muckalola, but it wasn't, so it couldn't do anything to it. He has a... I don't remember what the Zardex did. I think it was nothing, though. He did some other weird plays, like going into the Empoleon and sacking it for no reason to the Garchomp. So just a bunch of weird plays and really just throwing away of momentum and really just not having any plan whatsoever to win the game. So what Kudo needs to do to improve, like I try not to like just shit on people for their mistakes, but try and point them out and offer advice so that people can improve upon them, rather than just say what's wrong, because I feel like doing that, providing what people are doing wrong and how to correct it, is a way to learn, I think. So hopefully people can take this as a learning experience who are lower and try and get up higher, like D-Winchell did last year, or not even last year, last season. It's a good example. But yeah, what Kudo needs to do is think a lot harder in prep. about what his opponent is going to do and what his opponent's going to have, bring more solid answers to things, understand what his opponent is going to try and do defensively to stop him, and how he can overwhelm his opponent's defense. Because obviously your opponent's not going to roll over and die and let you do whatever you want. They're going to have countermeasures. You have to try and predict it and work around it and win the game despite their countermeasures. So yeah, that's really the biggest thing. Is more creative prepping to win the game. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say on that. And I guess probably improve on battling a little bit, or at least think out plays, because there was a few really kind of weird plays, namely that Empoleon sack for no reason. So number 9, I have Flair, who lost to Hazy this week. Flair didn't lose too badly, but I feel like to some extent, Flair, as opposed to the other two, Flair had significantly better prep than Kudo and PK. Flair's prep was actually good enough to give him a legitimate shot at winning the game. Kudo and PK, it was very hard for them to win the game off of just the beginning because their prep wasn't there. Flair had a decent prep. He had a good shot of winning this game. But Flair just made a lot of really weird plays. Some of the plays worked out for him, even though they were like weird as fuck. It was kind of confusing. His switch into Zapdos was Vaporeon. I don't get it. I really I'd like to hear an explanation as to why Vaporeon was Zapdos switching, but it was. He kept clicking Earth Power while scarfed with his Celebi into Zapdos, and it ended up working against Hazy just because Hazy was like predicting, I would assume predicting U-turns or Toxics or some Psychics or something. I don't even know exactly, but they ended up working out. But yeah, he was bringing in Celebi, which really typically does not threaten Zapdos, and then clicking Earth Power as a prediction, which is a pretty weird play. And in the end, he still lost quite convincingly. But I feel that what puts him above the rest is that his prep actually gave him a chance to win the game. He didn't really have a game plan, or at least none that I could see that really laid out before him, and he made some really whack plays that gave him no chance of winning the game past that, namely having Vaporeon as your Zapdos switch it and continuously switching into it, not scouting for Zweilous, Scarf Zweilous turn 1, and Earth Powering the Zapdos, even though it worked out, was a really bad play. So yeah, I have him at number 9, being with those criticisms. He just needs to, I don't know, maybe think, I don't know exactly what was going on in his head for some of those plays. Like obviously with his wireless, you just need to be more careful, consider more options, think about what's going on, because that's just like you being careless. So be a bit more careful when you play. I don't understand the Vaporeon thing or the Celebi thing, so I can't really comment on that or how to fix it, but yeah, that's there. But yeah, like I said before, he's above the other two based on his prep, and I think his team is significantly better than the other two as well, or his draft, which makes it easier for him to have good prep, especially than PK. But yeah, the battling skill needs some work. I'm sorry, I spoiled everything. I scrolled too hard. Number 8, I have Robot Boy, who I'd consider up a pretty decent jump up from Flair. Robot Boy didn't make any whack plays like Flair did, in my opinion. But his prep wasn't all the way there. Similarly to Kudo and PK, he just really didn't bring anything to that really broke down Reggie's team. There was nothing that really put Reggie in super bad scenarios. yeah, he just didn't bring anything strong that really did anything. His entire team, what can I think of him off the top of my head? Dusclops, which was shadow punching things for about -3 damage. It crit the Lando, it did 9%. The Rotom Heat, which like wasn't doing very much damage either. It's not a particularly strong mon. It's a decent, like fairly decent pivot, but didn't do much. He brought the Ninetales, which is a great support mon, can provide the Veil, but he didn't really have anything that was setting up under the Veil or using the Veil to provide pressure. So it ended up being that like the Lola Ninetales with his best breaker, it has like not even 100 attack, special attack, I think, which should not be happening. Those three. He had the Hitmonchan, I think. It was a Hitmonchan or Hitmontop. I think it's Hitmonchan, which is not a very strong mon to begin with. He had... What else did he have? I'm going to pull up the replay real quick on my phone because I'm forgetting. Fuck. I don't even have the dock open. I have to scroll through the replays. Point is... Point is that he did not bring any power whatsoever. He had the Chomp. The Chomp was the strongest guy in the Among Us, which wasn't doing anything. So his Chomp was really his only chance of breaking down Reggie's team. And Reggie had like okay checks to it, and mainly in the Rotom. But he really just rarely brought the Chomp in. He let it get damaged fairly heavily, and the Chomp really just didn't do much. So yeah, the biggest problem with him is that he seemed to almost be playing not to lose. He was always on the back foot and really not applying any pressure. He was always throwing up the Veil, which really wasn't doing anything for him because he wasn't using it to do anything. He was just sitting there and kind of pivoting around until everything got worn out and kind of died. Now Reggie had his own issues that I'll talk about later. But Robot Boy just really didn't bring any power that put Reggie into a bad scenario at any point. I think the Pinsir should have definitely come, just because it provides that oomph, and actually gives Reggie some issues to switch into and deal with. So yeah, the biggest issues were the prep, just not bringing anything that really was very powerful. Actually, was this Chomp Scarf? I don't even remember. I don't know, but I do remember the Chomp didn't do all that much, when it was probably his only chance to really do anything. So moving up, and oh come on, I did it again. Number 7, I got Jolty, who played me this week. So Jolty has his super defensive teams that are typical with him. And early game, he played this game like a madman. He was reading everything and making like extremely ballsy predictions, like regularly, like predictions where if I get this wrong, I lose the game. And I was very close to calling him out on a lot of the times, but in the end, I didn't. And Jolty, like, if he was playing very recklessly, but I think it's fine too if you're able to get away with it and get the plays right, but it's difficult to get them right constantly. And eventually I was able to make some plays of my own and sway the momentum back into my favor, just outside the early game. And once I got the momentum more towards my favor, Jolty really started to struggle. But Jolty did play well early game, extremely well, and really put himself into a good scenario. He said after that he felt that he needed to play aggressive to have a chance at the game, and I'd really agree. Some big things that Jolty did though was he brought the Autotomize Necrozma, which I don't know. I don't feel was really the bring here. It almost ended up working, but I think the defensive Necrozma really gave my team issues more than offensive. especially because it gave him the opportunity to put up rocks, which, because I had rocks up and he didn't, I was able to just U-turn all around to get chip on everything, which really was the end. And he said to himself that the rocks going up really ended him. But had he put rocks up, he would have put me in a likewise situation, but he really didn't. I think Jolty, that's just a chronic issue of his, is undervaluing rocks. But yeah, he played the game well. I think his prep was pretty good, to be honest. I think other than bringing the Necrozma, I really didn't have any criticisms for it. The prep was actually pretty much quite close to what I was expecting and what I would have brought myself against me. Except probably I would have brought the Cobalion over probably the Zebstrika. But yeah, other than that, I thought it was really solid prep, and he played the game well, which is why I have him higher than all but one team that lost. So the second highest team that lost. He played well, he prepped well. I think he's one of the stronger teams that lost. And I think he should bounce back next week against Robot Boy. Apparently they've already played, so I could search for the replay right now. I'll probably look at it after the game. But I have not watched it before this. So I would pick Jolty to win that game because I feel that he is the stronger player and really puts himself into a position to win better than Robot Boy did. Although I have a limited sample size of him, Jolty does seem like I would favor Jolty to win that. The only thing I would worry about for Jolty is that Pinsir absolutely destroys his team. And like I said in the post-draft power rankings, his flying resist is Zebstrika, so that's never a good scenario. But yeah, Jolty played and prepped well. I think he just needed to I think the physical Necrozma would have really upped his chance. Physically defensive Necrozma really would have upped his chance to win, getting up rocks, and possibly bringing a better Tauren set. Because Tauren, although it did pressure me more than anything else on his team, the fact that Lantern and Coco and a lot of things on my team were able to get away with coming in on it so easily made it much easier to deal with than it could have been otherwise. Or if it had defog, that also would have helped him out a lot. At number 6, I have Dewinchel, who actually won this week. I have him the lowest of the winners because although he did win and quite dominantly, it was over PK. And PK's team was not that good, and he really did not need to do anything, and he didn't play or prep very impressively, in my opinion. Now, it was by no means bad. He got the 5-0 win, and he did what he needed to do to win, which was just sit there with Milotic, and then until Tangrowth came out, and when Tangrowth came out, go into literally anything that's not Milotic, and then scare it out, and then go back into Milotic, and rinse and repeat. Until eventually Raikou won. Like I said before, I think Dewinchel, if he just played the game more offensively, really could have just smashed PK. Because PK didn't really have solid answers to the Raikou or the Swellow. Also, Swellow gets Heat Wave. I don't know if Dewinchel knew that, or if he was running it and just didn't want to Heat Wave the Selly, but he could have Heat Waved the Selly. I also really hate Life Orb U-turn. If Tepig from last season taught you anything, it's not to use that because you just kill yourself before doing anything. But yeah. Solid game, but because it was against PK, I'm not rating it very high, and I think he could have done a lot better with his game and with his prep. So I have him lower than everyone else, but once he plays more games against stronger competition, he can really prove where he lies. So above Dewinchel, I have the only Tepig at number 5, who actually lost, so it might be a bit surprising to see him this far up here, but I felt that he easily played the strongest game out of all of the people who lost this week. He played Jeff, and Jeff played an extremely impressive game to beat him. I feel Tepig really played and prepped quite solidly himself. I think that thing that ended up being the end of Tepig was that he brought Scarf Mew over Bulky Mew. Bulky Mew could have walled Lopunny throughout the entirety of a game. Now, I understand, like, you can be afraid of Facade or Power Up Punch or something, but I think you would always just much rather have the regenerative recovery, or even put Rest Talk on Suicune. But he needed some regenerative recovery to deal with the Lopunny, because it ended up just getting to the point where he needed to just rinse and repeat of bringing Mew back in to deal with the Lopunny, and Lopunny just claiming constantly until the Mew got worn down. So yeah, I think that was a fatal mistake, and it's not even that big of a mistake. I think Tepig probably thought he could just out-offense the Lopunny. In the end, he was wrong, or maybe pick it off with a Psychic without being expected, or like with a surprise. But Jeff did scout for it, and it just became a sack race, and Jeff was able to win it in the end. But I do think Tepig played the game well, definitely better than many of the losers, and more impressively than D. Winchell played his win, which is why I have him higher than him. So yeah, I don't have any major criticism for Tepig other than that Mew set. And so I have him at number 5. Moving up one slot, I have Reggie at number 4. So Reggie in this game, similarly to Robot Boy, I feel like they were both playing to not lose. So neither one of them was really doing anything to put themselves in good scenarios to win. I think Reggie massively underutilized his T-Tar this game. I think he was so afraid of his T-Tar getting burnt that he refused to do anything with it, but he either didn't understand or like wasn't thinking that even though if T-Tar was burnt, it could still completely trap the Rotom heat. It could shut down Veil. I'm pretty sure Stone Edges were killing both of them even under burn, because it was Banded Tar. And also, if he trapped the Rotom heat in, then he was able to just like spam Brave Bird pretty freely with his Talonflame. But yeah, Reggie, I feel it was just a little bit frustrating watching him. He was, like I said before, just playing not to lose instead of like commanding the game and putting himself into a position to win, and getting his threats in. He did end up getting the win, but in the end, but I think it should have been a bit more decisive than it was because of the passiveness of Robot Boy's team. I think it was possibly a little bit hard for him to break down, but he definitely could have done it. Yeah, I don't have any major criticisms other than that. Just he should have been a bit more aggressive, utilized his T-Tar more, looked for openings to put himself in positions to win the game, such as trapping the Rotom heat, things like that. But he really didn't, and it made the game a lot more long and drawn out than it needed to be. So moving up, number 3, I have PETA, who played a fine game this week against Kudo. PETA, like, I really don't have any major misplays in prep or play. I think maybe possibly not bringing more. What was the thing? He's the Hitmonlee, and he didn't bring a. Actually, it was kind of just weird how he actually let the Hitmonlee get kills, and like kick his Klefki to death. I think that's what happened. I don't know. I think PETA really should have just won this game 6-0, just because Drill and Chomp had such good matchups, but he had to set Sand and ended up sacking due to that, which is whatever. But the game he's played fine, prepped for fine, and he got a quite dominant win, which with really like quite minimal effort. It seemed like he really didn't even need to make any plays. So I think that was more of just a consequence of his opponent, kind of like Winchell, where he really couldn't have shown how good he could have been. So until he plays a bit better competition, he can't really prove himself to be up higher on the list. So we'll see what happens when he does. But yeah, his game was fine. Yeah, and really not much to comment on. Just well executed, well prepped for, but not a great opponent, or at least like, I don't know. It just was much less impressive given the opponent's ranking. So moving to number 2, I have Hazy, who similar story, played Flare. So like Pete, I thought played the game decently well. I think going hard into the or he played a little bit poorly around the Celebi and like letting it earth power his heat turn twice. But other than that, the game was pretty well played. I don't think he made any massive misplays. I think he's just ranked higher than Pete. Really, like because both had fine prep and no massive misplays. I just have him above Pete because he had a stronger opponent and therefore was more impressive in beating them. I was more impressed by Hazy's performance than Pete's, just because Pete really had a cap on how impressive his performance could have been in that game. So yeah, not a ton of feedback other than that. Just play slightly better around the Celebi. Yeah. So last is Jeff, who played Tepig and won and played a very impressive game in my opinion. Early game Tepig really had Jeff in a bad spot because he really had no way to switch into Scalds. His Buzzwole kept coming in and like evading burns, which is quite unfortunate for Tepig, but shit, I just realized. Wait, no, never mind. That's not even. Is there a space here? I can't tell. It looks like there is. Is the T just really weird? Yeah, that's just a weird T. It looks like there's a space there. I don't know, it's 3:36, so I'm probably just getting tired. Yeah, Jess Buzzwole, the team mascot, was evading burns, which was really unfortunate for Tepig. It ended up putting him in a much worse scenario. But Jeff did a good job to get up rocks and preserve what he needed at all times to win the game. And he really played the lop well to preserve it for the late game. So Tepig really dominated him in the early game, but Tepig let his Suicune get warded down, and he switched his Mewin into a return, getting a little bit greedy, trying to predict a fighting move from Jeff. Jeff did a really good job of predicting what Tepig would do late game and really putting himself in a scenario to win the late game. And the game really came down to the wire, but I was really impressed with what Jeff did, which is why I have him at number 1. Yeah, so I think that's about it. I don't know. As for major misplays, probably letting the Piloswine come in so freely on the Nidoqueen and Thunderbolting instead of Earth Powering, but I can understand the play of wanting the extra damage on Suicune if he stayed in, but I don't think it was worth letting Piloswine come in for free and probably proceeding to Earth Power at the next turn and losing the Nidoqueen for no reason, which really let Diancie start claiming every time it came in. I think that was really the only massive misplay on Jeff's part, but even then it wasn't that big of a misplay and he was able to get out the win. So yeah, those are my week 1 rankings. I think they're heavily based upon the matchup, especially like if you saw the top 3 were really, especially in case of Hazy, I just said top 3, so it's really dumb of me to say. The top 3 guys were really pigeonholed by their matchup in terms of how impressive they could have possibly been. So I really hope that people who are lower on the list who watch this video, instead of being mad or like upset that you're lower on the list, use it as more of a motivation to want to move up and climb and track your progress, and try and take my advice to heart. Try and possibly seek out resources, other people and other servers, YouTube, anything, to try and learn more and try and see what you can do and improve. And I think since these matches were this week 1 power rankings was so based on matchups, week 2 should definitely give a better view of where people actually lie, and I look forward to it. So I'll see you then.